Welcome back to Tack on Red. Today we're working on my Honda VTR1000F, which I would say in the current motorcycle market, it is the MX-5 or Miata of motorcycles. It's cheap, simple, does a lot of things sort of well, but isn't great at anything, except perhaps putting a smile on your face. It is great at that. Two things we're going to do in this video. First is adding an exhaust heat shield, though it's not going to be for the heat. It's actually because I was a bit of an idiot and I didn't notice my chain had gotten really stretched out. I wasn't paying attention to my chain tension, and the lower part of the chain ended up hitting my exhaust manifold and kind of cut two pretty deep grooves. It hasn't cut all the way through, but I don't really want to find out how much metal is still left where those grooves are. I've already adjusted my chain tension, but just in case I do the same stupid thing again and forget to check it, I'm gonna add this metal heat shield, it's just held on with these two hose clamps, to the part of my exhaust manifold that is directly under the chain. So that's out the way. Now the second thing we're going to do is replace the coolant overflow tank. This bike is like 25 years old, so it's probably got the exact same coolant tank that it left the factory with. So no surprise that it's developed a crack and is leaking. So I got a pressure tested, leak-free, used coolant overflow tank, and I'm going to be swapping it. So when I asked on a VTR1000F Facebook group about swapping the coolant tank, I asked if you could just get at it right from the side without removing the carburetors. Replies I got in the group was, no, you need to remove the carburetors. I'm stubborn and lazy and I don't want to go through the trouble of removing the carburetors, so I'm going to try getting the coolant tank out the side of the frame. First, I got the overflow drain hose out from underneath the bike. Then I'm disconnecting the other hose that connects to the top of the right side radiator. Next, we want to unbolt this thing. There's a little L-shaped bracket on the right side of the frame. There's a bolt holding that bracket to the frame and another bolt that holds the coolant tank to the bracket. I'm using a really long extension and a 10mm socket to get at that bolt from way out in front of the bike. Got the bolt out, so now it's just a matter of wriggling that coolant tank out of that tiny little space on the right side of the frame. So getting the old coolant tank out was not the hard part. Instead, it's actually getting the replacement coolant tank in to the exact same spot. There's a little stub on the left side of the tank which is supposed to fit right into a hole on the left side of the frame. And there are a whole bunch of coolant hoses in that space that will try to get in the way. So I had a somewhat rare moment of brilliance. I sprayed down all the coolant hoses with silicone lubricant. This stuff is inert, it doesn't react with anything, and it washes off easily just with water. It's going to make it a lot easier for the coolant tank to just slide around them and get into place. Now I did have to go back and forth between the right and the left side of the bike to kind of massage it and finesse it so that the stub on the left side of the tank goes into that hole, but eventually I got it. And then I just got to put that bolt back in on the right side of the tank and then fill it back up with coolant. So myth busted, sort of. You don't need to remove the carburetor to replace the coolant tank, but I've had the carburetors off a couple of times in the past and I may have rerouted my hoses and my choke cable and everything that's in there so that it is possible to get the coolant tank out. I mean, I wasn't being mindful of that when I did it. I may have done it by accident. So depending on how all the hoses and the choke cable and everything that's in there is routed on your bike, you may need to take your carburetor off. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing if you'd like to see the rest of this VTR1000F build. I'm only just getting started, got tons of things that I'm planning to do on this bike, and I've also got tons of things that I've got planned for the NC MX-5 or Miata that's in the back.